All
right, welcome back to Trading Brains, everybody. I'm your host, Evan Greif, with my co-host here.
Hey guys, Angel Lucina here, and
Hey, we got it.
yeah, we got it. And yet again,
Fucking finally.
another second part of the mini series. Our guest here is CJ Nelson.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. And so, if you've been listening to the podcast up till now, you know that we did an episode recently on Swamp Thing. And today we're going to be also covering another DC Universe comic book hero. Personally, like one of my favorites, not just one character, but kind of the whole concept surrounding the Green Lantern Corps. So obviously, the hero in question is the Green Lantern. And we're gonna pretty much do the same thing, really, as with Swamp Thing, where we'll talk about the origin story, their like powers and abilities, and maybe even kind of like the villains that they interact with, or if they have any love interests, something like that. Um, and so this was something that I kind of chose, like last time we did Swamp Thing, because CJ was really excited to talk about Swamp Thing, and so this time I'm gonna
I would say
talk about
Adam. I
Lantern.
guess.
Huh?
I would say adamant about Swamp Thing.
Yeah, very adamant, I would say. Yeah. I didn't want to put words in your mouth though. So, um, but anyway, going into it. So, Green Lantern is kind of a title given to characters in the DC universe who fight evil using magic rings, and these magic rings are powered by the imagination, the will, the emotions of the user. Right. So, the greater the user's force of will, then the greater the power of the ring.
Well, it's
And
definitely. Sorry to cut you off. I just want to say it's definitely like a control of emotions, especially with the Green Lanterns. The Green Lanterns are very, you have to have like a control over your ego and all this other stuff, and like it's very like you have to have a very strong will, and you know what I mean. Like, and it doesn't choose you. It chooses you, but you don't get to choose to be a Green Lantern.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like
You can't just be like, "Hey, I want to join the Green Lantern Corps," Like,
it's not like a job application. You're like, oh, all right, I'm gonna lie a couple of things here.
How many years have you held the ring for?
yeah,
3.
yeah. So the people, like the characters in DC who wield these magic rings, they're usually members of the Green Lantern Corps, which is an interstellar law enforcement agency. Makes sense. But it's actually not always the case. There's just, I mean, there's minor exceptions, but for the most part, they're usually part of this kind of like intergalactic law enforcement agency. And so a lot of notable Green Lantern characters over the years have been like the first Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and then the reimagination during the Silver Age of comics, Hal
That's
Jordan.
a that's a deep pull, my friend. That's from back in the day.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm going to get into it. And then we've got Guy Gardner, who CJ probably knows more about than I do. So I'd actually like your support and assistance there. John Stewart, I know a little bit about him. Kyle Rayner, I didn't have much time to cover. But again, like Green Lantern as a concept is not just individual people, it's like the story surrounding the giant Green Lantern itself and the power of the rings. Yeah. And also honorable mentions of Kilowog, because Kilowog is always like a huge kind of sidekick slash support Green Lantern, and Mogo. And Mogo is actually a legitimate planet that has a Green Lantern ring. It's kind of like Saturn's rings, right? It just like surrounds the planet, which is really really interesting.
It's pretty dope. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's
Like,
that's
all right,
that's one of the things that will even
on
shock
Mogo,
me,
like,
my friend.
so do like everyone who's on Mogo has a power like Green Lantern, or they still need to wear that ring?
No, so if you land on Mogo, you still need to have a ring if you want the powers. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Green Lantern.
because the ring.
Um,
I mean, the ring itself has power, but it's all about the actual lantern that you have, and then you have to recite
Oh,
the chant. Yeah.
But there's actually like many different variations of the chant that have happened with like other characters. Unfortunately, I don't have notes on like what those were, but they're really interesting because some of them are like ye old British like alterations,
Yeah.
which are really really funny. And then there's other ones that are like the Black Lanterns. You know, they have like a different one, of course.
Yeah.
Or Batman. Batman has his own special one back when he got Green Lantern ring and went on like a murderous rampage. But that's a separate story.
I think there was even one of the more notable ones was I'm gonna probably butcher this, but it was like it was something to the effect of, to the end of my wrist, here comes my fist, and
Right.
he would just bash somebody in the mouth. And like he got the back. It was something crazy like that, and it was just really funny to
I
read.
think Al said something like that too when he was fighting someone. Just like
Yeah.
he knew the chant was for like the ring thing or whatever, but he was just kind of making like having fun with it when he was fighting. So
Yeah.
getting back to the first Green Lantern, and I kind of wish I had more notes on it because it's pretty interesting. Alan Scott, first Green Lantern, made in 1940 by Martin Odell during the Golden Age of comics. And he was just fighting common criminals in a place called Capital City, which actually would later be renamed Gotham City, right? So it was originally Capital City. And Alan Scott's Green Lantern powers, like he got it. There was this weird, like, green fiery meteor that came from outer space, hit somewhere, I think in China. And then a local villager kind of like found the meteor and then forged a lantern out of the metal from that meteor. And then the villagers all thought it was like witchcraft or whatever, superstitious. So they murdered that dude who made the lantern. Lantern gets in the hands of like someone else, I don't know, across the world. And
Yes.
Alan Scott, who's in like a railroad accident. I think he was like a railroad engineer, but he gets in an accident.
Yeah,
And-
he was an engineer.
Yeah, he gets possession of this lantern, and he forges a ring out of pieces of the lantern's metal. And this ring is actually what grants him like his magical powers. And for some reason or another, like it doesn't work against wood. Like he can't
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah, that was one of the weirder ones.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was part of the
Really
origin story then,
grand.
and even actually kind of reworked it into his retcon, like when they changed Alan Scott's character very recently. But I'll get into that a little bit later. And then after Alan Scott kind of died away, along with the golden age of comics, in 1959, John Broome and Gil Kane reinvented the Green Lantern character as Hal Jordan he was-
Silver Age,
in
right?
the Silver Age, and moving more away from fantasy because, like, obviously, you know, it's a magic ring, so it's fantasy based, but kind of more. They were like trying to push it to move to science fiction.
Yeah.
Where Hal Jordan himself was like a test pilot, you know, and he was fighting with like, you know, technology. Like there's his first issue, I think, was he was like fighting a runaway missile or something like that. He was trying to like stop it from blowing up
Yeah. Hal
something.
Jordan is the. I mean, it's between two. You know what I mean? Hal Jordan is one of the like iconic Green Lanterns. I mean, he's
Yeah, and that's why most of what I'm covering today is going to be around
Hal
Hal.
Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah. His trivia wise, his physical appearance is actually based on the actor Paul Newman.
Really? I actually didn't know that one. That's pretty-
Yeah. So and I mean I saw the resemblance immediately. I saw a picture of Paul Newman and I was like, yeah, okay, that's Hal Jordan. Like looks just like him.
Had Green Lantern so long. I'm actually like a little rusty on it, so
Yeah.
This is a good like, you know.
Yeah, I mean I'm having fun with it, so I hope the listeners are enjoying so far. Like his early life. So as a child, Hal was actually traumatized by watching his father, who was a pilot, die in a plane crash. Like he saw it happen, and kind of like Batman, like refusing to bow down to fear, he actually followed in his father's footsteps and became a military test pilot, right, doing like flying in fighter jets, even though he was completely terrified every time he flew. And so that's kind of like leading into how you become a Green Lantern. It's like, you know, the willpower to overcome fear, right? Typically, that's like what the rings look for, and also the whole council.
The whole core, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, the whole
they-
core.
they-
So
Mm.
years later, as he's growing up, Hal gets kicked out of the military for assaulting an officer, and he got reduced to an engineer. So he's just giving planes tune-ups. He's not a pilot anymore, and he gets abducted by a dying alien whose name is Abin Sur. And Abin Sur is the Green Lantern who was like dying, and he crash landed on Earth, and Sur wanted Hal to replace him in the Green Lantern Corps. And if you saw the movie, that's actually pretty much how like it happens. The spaceship, Abin Sur comes out and he's like, "Hey, I need somebody,
somebody to inherit the mantle, basically."
He tells the Ring like find somebody who has a great amount of will and can carry up the mantle of Green Lantern on Earth. And so basically the Ring goes searching for someone who could join the Corps, and Hal accepted, and he got summoned for basic training to the Corps' headquarters on the planet Oa. And after he completed his basic training, he gets assigned to Thal Sinestro, who's from Korugar. And Sinestro is like a huge character in the Green Lantern series. He's very...
Least.
Huh?
You could say the least that he's...
Yeah, I mean, it's putting it mildly, yeah.
Yeah.
But so, anyway, Hal pretty much works under Sinestro, and they become friends. But at some point, as they're working together, Hal realizes that Sinestro's got some shady business going on, and he actually enslaved Korugar, which is, Sinestro's home planet, and he was using his ring to do that. So Hal actually attacked Sinestro and turned him into the Green Lantern Corps. And Sinestro was really, really pissed off about that pretty much for the rest of his life. Yeah. That's the origin story of Hal as the Green Lantern.
Yeah. Well, Hal Jordan's, whole tragic backstory, as well as it is a tragic backstory, it's a very triumphant, it's a building story, you know what I mean? Uh-huh. Like, it's very, like, where Hal takes, like...
it was like a slow build.
It's a slow build, but it's so worth it, because when Hal does take on Sinestro's home planet to basically free them, it's such an epic, like, clash, because Sinestro becomes basically one of the biggest villains of the Green Lantern universe. I mean, the Green Lantern Corps. I mean, he ends up, I think he ends up wearing the yellow ring, right?
Yeah. So he basically gets access to the Guardians, who are in charge of the Yellow Lanterns, right? Mm-hmm. And then they give him, a yellow ring, a yellow power, and a yellow ring is basically like the ability to overcome fear.
Yep.
So how well you can like control fear or control the fear in others, that kind of thing. So obviously you'd think that Batman is like the perfect candidate for that, but besides that, like Sinestro is becomes a tyrant, and he starts enslaving that planet, and Hal has to stop him, and that's the origin story there. And there's even like a Sinestro Corps War arc where Sinestro recruits like a bunch of Green Lanterns to join his side to become Yellow Lanterns, and the Green Lanterns and Yellow Lanterns have this kind of war, which is kind of like I don't know, maybe similar to Marvel's Civil War.
Yeah,
but not entirely, because like you only have lanterns v lanterns, so.
Yeah, but I feel like if it's Civil War on a universal galactic level, where there's so much more at stake, Civil War compared to the Green Lantern versus Yellow Lantern War Civil War was basically just a pissing match compared to
the scale of like DC stories are also always so much larger,
grandiose. It's so like epic, and it's just like, holy shit, two gods. I mean, with these rings, they're basically gods. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Different kind of rings are fighting one another as well.
Well, it's different kind of rings that are different emotions, so it's very... So with Green Lanterns, you're controlling every other emotion except for willpower. Willpower, you have to be willing to do... You're willing to lay it out all on the line, just to make sure everything is, to save everybody. I mean, and that's what the best part about the Green Lanterns are, is we're willing to do everything to save a planet, universe, galaxy, whatever it is, while Yellow Lanterns are controlling fear to a point where it's like it's narrowing it to straight power. You know what I mean? Like if it was to be like a visor or like some sort of like directional device, it's like directing it. So it's pure concentrated, like I'm controlling my fear, I know what it is, whatever, and that's what's giving me the power to, use the ring and all that stuff. And obviously, I mean, there's hierarchies with the rings. I mean, the willpower is obviously at the top.
Yeah, and also like the rings themselves also have to be charged, right? You can't use like an
you have
empty
to do the whole incantation and do the whole
charge with the lantern. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, the Green Lanterns could get the shit kicked out of them like any other, organic human being.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that,
but is there like
the point? Like it's a magic ring.
Performance issues like with the Green Lantern, like the ring, like in the sense of like
not really with the Green Lantern. With
you fully control it.
So,
what kind of issues do you mean?
I guess you're saying like are you saying if the willpower is not essentially there, it's going to dwindle your power?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're
not
confident, 100%,
Confident
in control of your, willpower or fear, anger, whatever it is, it's going to dwindle your power. So, and that's what was great about Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan, like Evan said, was terrified to fly 99.9% of the time because of his traumatic experiences and whatnot.
But he was still able to do it.
Once he got control of his power, there was no stopping him because he was so self-assured, so you know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those characters where emotion controls everything, where you think like Batman has control over his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think that the Green Lanterns definitely have more. The Green Lanterns, or pretty much any Lanterns, have more emotional control than him. But that's something that could definitely.
Yeah, it's something that directly affects their powers. So obviously, it's something that they have to be good at.
Yeah, I mean, it's an emotion-based, power, and when you do have those rings, I mean, I don't know. Hal Jordan was definitely one of those ones that was able to, control it. While as Guy Gardner, he was a tough case.
Yeah, I'm actually not finished with like Hal Jordan entirely.
No, definitely.
And we could get into Guy, because I think like what I'm about to cover right now doesn't have Guy in it that much. But basically, one of the reasons I like Hal Jordan is that like he actually has a really dark side of him, kind of like Carl Jung's shadow. So like people who like how real heroes, right? The heroes who we listen to and hear about in stories, the better ones are the ones who recognize that they have a dark side of themselves. Right, they have a dark part of themselves that they have to reconcile with and overcome, and still choose to move towards the light, still choose to be good. Right.
I mean, one of those examples, Batman.
Good and evil.
Batman knows if he pulls the trigger on any villain, he knows he won't be able to come back from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's actually one of the reasons I like Green Lantern as a character. Well, specifically Hal, I guess, is because like it's so relatable to us human beings. Like we all have good and we all have evil inside of us. And like the best characters that you read about in stories aren't like the goody two shoes, like, heroes like, yeah, I'm always good and I'm always fighting for justice, whatever. It's like, no, it's like the people we can relate to are the people who have those hard decisions, right? Where maybe you're not doing the right thing, or you're trying to do the wrong thing for the right reason, or you're conflicted or whatever.
Well,
The
DC's
battle,
best
the battle
at portraying
externally
actual human
and
experience.
internally, the battle both externally and internally between good and evil. So
Yeah.
anyway, that as a prelude to the story. So Hal, there's this alien tyrant whose name is Mongol, and his like army completely destroys Coast City, and it murders like 7 million inhabitants while Hal Jordan was off world. He wasn't around. So his girlfriend and his parents, everybody he knew in Coast City, dead. And obviously he's super pissed off about this. And he flies into Engine City.
Everybody would be pretty pissed off.
Anybody would be.
Your parents and girlfriend are dead.
Huh.
What the fuck?
Bitch.
So
Terrible.
he goes to Engine City. He attacks Mongol, gets his revenge against Mongol, and this leads into the Emerald Twilight arc, where Hal Jordan uses his power ring to recreate Coast City as like a way to overcome his grief, right? So he uses his power ring to recreate all like 7 million inhabitants, including the people he knew and loved, using the hard light constructs. And he started talking to like ring created versions of his old girlfriend and his parents. And after his ring's power expires, there's a projection of one of the Guardians of the Universe. So these Guardians of the Universe are like a council, you would say, like the Jedi Order or whatever, that pretty much govern the.
No, they basically sit and like ponder,
they enter the
discuss anything that's
Is it like
existence.
all Green
existence.
Lantern? Is it like everyone who has a Green Lantern, or everyone's like one of each?
I'm pretty sure it's
So there's only like a group of like 10 or 13 of the Guardians who are on the planet Oa, which has the giant Green Lantern, which from the giant Green Lantern are produced the personal lanterns that like, Hal Jordan holds and powers his ring up with. So after his ring power expires, projection of the Guardian appears, and the Guardian is like, hey, I can't believe you'd use the ring for such a personal reason. Like, we're summoning you to Oa for disciplinary action, right? Hal Jordan is really pissed off at this as well. He's like, the Guardians are being ungrateful and really like not understanding, right, of his emotional state and whatever. Yeah. So he actually absorbs the energy from the projection of the Guardian, goes insane, and he attacks Oa. So he murders pretty much all the Green Lanterns at that point, a bunch of the Guardians, one of his friends, Kilowog, and he seizes the full power of that central power battery, the giant lantern on Oa, and absorbs it. And as he absorbs that, he pretty much takes all the rings of the Green Lantern Corps and leaves them to die in outer space because they don't have the rings, so they can't really do anything. So he kills Sinestro, he kills Kilowog, and all the Guardians except for Ganthet, which is one Guardian who stays alive. And he renounces his life as Green Lantern, and he adopts the name Parallax after he absorbs the power battery's vast powers. And so the backstory behind that is that there's an ancient creature named Parallax who was imprisoned in the central power battery on Oa by the Guardians a long time ago. And it was always called the Yellow Impurity, right? Because it was this fear-based creature that just kind of like infected everything. And it went dormant from being imprisoned in the central power battery. However, since all of the lanterns charge up from the central power battery on Oa, and all of the rings charge up from those lanterns, the Yellow Impurity is included in everybody's power ring. So because Hal was in that weakened emotional state over Coast City being destroyed, Parallax was able to actually infect him as a host, and is the reason that he went insane and went back to Oa and murdered everyone. Which is like such a crazy backstory.
I got a question. Do you think he's a victim?
Do
you think he's a victim, or is he?
I mean, I don't think so, because Hal himself doesn't think so. Even to this day, he's still afraid of Parallax's effects and like what he's done. So yeah, but while that's happening, right? So Hal Jordan, no longer Green Lantern. He's Parallax. He's this evil motherfucking dude. Ganthet, the Guardian, designates Kyle Rayner to replace him as the Green Lantern of Earth when Rayner gets possession of the last Power Ring. Rayner is a very different character because he's kind of like an up-and-coming artist. He's not like the super brave, like soldier type that you would assume would be Green Lantern.
That's like slight DID because I mean, well, like later on, I'll throw in some information, but I think he's got dissociative identity disorder.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, basically, what happened,
Hear that?
so basically, Parallax grafted its soul onto Hal Jordan's soul. So he's in Hal Jordan's body, and it's like he's possessed really by Parallax itself. And then Hal Jordan kind of has an idea maybe he can free his own soul from Parallax if he combines with something called the Spectre. The Spectre is this like intergalactic like ghost, like the emissary of death in the DC universe. And so he actually becomes the Spectre as Hal Jordan, and he wants to be like the spirit of redemption rather than the spirit of, I guess, death is what the Spectre is. I forget the exact wording for it, unfortunately. But that plan doesn't really work out too well for him. And so even the Spectre isn't able to split Hal Jordan's soul from Parallax. And then, sometime later, I think Hal Jordan is able to like sacrifice his part of his soul to absorb a sun, and then that is kind of what enables him to separate from Parallax. And then he gets rejuvenated completely. He gets his own power ring, and he goes back and fights Sinestro, who at that point is still alive, right? And who was actually behind getting Parallax to infect Hal Jordan. So Sinestro was kind of like manipulating that whole thing where he's like, oh, Parallax, you should infect Hal Jordan as a host. But Hal Jordan wasn't going to be infected because he wasn't like, he had a lot of will, and he wasn't at weakened state that he was at Coast City. So eventually he breaks free of the spell.
That he was just uncontrollable emotion. You know what I mean? That's.
Yep. So, basically, Hal is able to break free from the hold of Parallax, gets his power ring back, and he saves Kyle Rayner and Green Arrow from Sinestro. And then after Sinestro gets defeated, Hal Jordan actually leads the rest of the remaining Green Lanterns that he didn't murder yet, or I guess new Green Lanterns, right, in a battle against Parallax itself.
I got a quick question. Was that with Crisis? And Crisis kind of screwed up the whole timeline where it was
Like the Crisis
the Crisis on Infinite Worlds, was it?
Yeah.
I don't know for certain that's where it was. You mean 0 Hour, Crisis in Time?
Yeah, actually,
Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm gonna tentatively say yes, but I don't want to commit to anything because
All right.
because I'm not 1,000%
Well, there's
sure.
one. Well, so I actually think you're probably thinking about Crisis of Infinite Worlds, because this one is like different, like time altering, like rewrite history thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's definitely part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Infinite Crisis, Crisis of Infinite Worlds has Green Lantern characters involved in it.
So it might be a strictly Green Lantern based series where it was,
Yeah, this part here where Hal Jordan actually breaks free of Parallax's hold is called Green Lantern Rebirth.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the New 52, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
The New 52, where they revamped literally every DC character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's always so easy to just do that,
Yeah, but it's so solid though, because the writers got better, the illustrators got better, so it's just everything. Like when you read the rebirth of any any of the DC series, you're like,
Wow,
holy shit, this is awesome.
So they go back, right, and they beat Sinestro. He leads the Green Lanterns against Parallax. They finally beat Parallax, but they imprison it not in the central Green Lantern, but the power batteries of Earth's lanterns. So basically, all the other Green Lantern's rings who are in that charge up from the central one are free of the yellow impurity, right? Because Parallax isn't imprisoned there. He's only central to the Earth's power batteries. They're able to, I guess, keep it in a more safe imprisonment, right?
Mhm.
And so Hal Jordan, once again rejoins the Justice League after being this evil dude, repenting and being a good guy, and he's back in the Corps, and he's along with John Stewart, one of the two most active members, assigned to Sector 2814.
I mean, it's literally Hal Jordan and John Stewart.
That's the story.
Every other Green Lantern pales in comparison to both of them
and what they have done.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I I don't know much. Well, I know much about John Stewart's personal story, and his love lives are tragic. And I say love lives because he has multiple love interests, and he gets screwed over every time, and in really fucked up ways.
Being screwed over in the sense of
falls in love with this lady,
dead, tortured, kidnapped.
A fake, a shapeshifter took a place of his love life for years, and he didn't know that he was laying with a shapeshifter.
Dude, if you were to get the shit end of the stick, your shit stick is 12 feet under, and it's beneath elephant and bullshit. It's so you get to a point where you're John Stewart, stop, just don't look for love, man. Just fucking, just fight.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit more.
Don't look for anybody to love. Don't.
Yeah, CJ, if you want to talk about Guy, I've got a little bit on John Stewart, and then we can go into powers and abilities.
Yeah, Guy Gardner, arguably one of the biggest dicks in comics. But it didn't start that way. So he was actually a pretty decent person, and so not like Hal Jordan, but in a different way, he had a very tragic backstory. I mean, his dad was an abusive alcoholic, beat the shit out of him every day, fucked him up, and had just this horrible existence. And he tried to stick himself to the books. Eventually, he became a juvenile delinquent, and he had his issues and shit. And then he got the ring. Well, it wasn't. I'm paraphrasing, but he gets the ring.
Well, actually, what happened is that when Abin Sur landed on Earth, he told the ring to find somebody. He didn't say pick Hal Jordan, right? Mm-hmm. And the only reason explained really is that Hal Jordan was just closer in proximity than Guy Gardner was at the time. So Guy Gardner was actually designated as Hal Jordan's backup, even though Hal Jordan was really close friends with Barry Allen, the Flash. So yeah. But anyway, CJ, continue.
So, Guy Gardner gets the ring, is actually a pretty decent dude, and not this obnoxious fucking asshole that everybody,
knows him as.
Seems to pin him as. And then, in Crisis on Infinite Earths, the whole DC series of, where the multiverse is falling apart,
we don't talk
it's
about that.
No, but it's so funny because it's so it's so human what happens. It's just something so I don't know.
Emotions take over.
No, not even emotions. It's just a weird cosmic coincidence. He gets hit by a fucking bus.
Yeah.
It's hit by a bus.
I think he was trying to save a civilian, right? He was trying to save somebody.
He part of his backstory was he worked at a school for special needs students. Like I said, he wasn't a bad guy, and he was saving one of his students or somebody who was mentally handicapped, or I think
he's saving someone.
But it was somebody who actually had something special needs. Save them, basically got in the way, pushed them out of the way, hit by a bus. Gets brain damage, and he becomes an aggressive, arrogant lunatic.
Like
Yep.
you become a different person, like an alter
Like,
ego.
Yeah, yeah.
Alter ego stays on.
it's like Guy Gardner's son, where he was the sun, and then it was just
The
moon.
Like a full
Just
180.
Full 180. Just totally different person. And DC loved it. People loved it. People liked the fact that he was this arrogant kind of. I'm saying this very tentatively, but like Deadpool-esque, like
Anti-hero?
dick.
Oh.
No, just like a dick. Just like, snide remarks. Just like just the kind of guy that you just don't want to deal with. Like,
very
just a
sarcastic.
dick. Yeah. So he basically becomes like the dick of Green Lanterns.
Cool.
Where even the Green Lanterns, like John Stewart and I don't think Hal Jordan, but John Stewart definitely was around at that point, and he was just like, this guy's a dick. What the hell is he doing with a power ring?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve it, but he was so cocksure and like so like solidified within himself that the ring couldn't reject him because he was comfortable with who he was, and he was fine with who he was, and he had he had the willpower and all this stuff to have a ring. You know what I mean? So he didn't fall out of grace where it was like, oh, he turned into this dick and then the ring rejected him.
Yeah.
No, he turned into a dick just enough to be able to still have the power ring. And that, I mean, he's definitely entertaining to read. I mean,
yeah, probably more so than like, I mean, a lot of characters can have the same kind of personality, and then when you come out with a character like that who's kind of a jerk and like not what you would typically think of as like the normal hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's a jerk, or like, hey, like, I saved the planet, pay me,
No, he's definitely one
right?
of those
Like,
dudes where you're like.
But it's also cool that he has a soft spot, right? That he was like helping out, people with special needs and.
Yeah, I mean,
his older brother was actually a cop.
That was definitely his staple. Where he was, I mean, he still held on to that. I guess his mind still held on to that fact that he was, I mean, he did really, help the special needs community in such a way that it was something that was unshakable. And whether it was brain damage or not, he was never, going to waver from it.
Going back to like the whole backstory of Guy Gardner, like did he get the ring before he turned to a dick, or after? Before the bus crash, or after?
It was after.
Yeah, it was after. I mean, there was this whole.
So then, did the ring? The question, like the reason why I'm going, did the ring had the reason because he was still
memory?
Yeah. Still wanted him because who he was deep down,
and
it's still inside of him.
I don't know
from today.
I can't 100% say if the ring actually had memory or if it was just him that had the memory. But I mean, there was this story arc where he actually believed himself to be the last Green Lantern, like the best Green Lantern, and tried to destroy the world, and Hal Jordan and John Stewart had to team up to stop him and kind of knock him out of that psychotic behavior, and kind of knocked him down to a point where he was like, oh shit, I screwed up. So whether you could say it was ring memory or his own mind, I guess that's really up to the reader. But I really do feel like Guy Gardner was never a bad person to begin with, so I have to, I guess, believe that it was him. You know what I mean? And he just needed a good knock in the head to
change it.
Change it.
It's professional.
Because they kicked the crap out of him. They really.
So do you know what kind of constructs a guy like to use, or like how he fought? Because like I have some stuff here about like Hal Jordan's constructs or Jon Stewart's constructs or even Kyle Rayner's as well.
I do not.
Fine.
No, I don't. Yeah. That's like I said, I'm pretty rusty on
Green Lantern, right?
Green Lantern, yeah. So I don't have everything. I just know. I remember what I read, and I remember how certain things went down, but the constructs with the rings, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like I guess here's some powers and abilities at this point, right? All the Green Lanterns can fly. They're kind of invulnerable because of the ring. They have energy projection, so they can like shoot lasers out of the rings. And the most interesting and quite honestly, one of the more powerful abilities are the hard light construct creations. Right? Yeah. So like you can imagine something and create whatever you want using your imagination. So the ring is a weapon of the mind, and it's powered by willpower. So
Go Gadget train and create a train and just smash people with it. And it's not like it's I feel like I'm getting hit by a train. No, it's you're getting smashed by a train or by a sledgehammer or whatever it is.
Or not, right? Like you could be because it's imagination, right? The person could be making like a train, and you'll think it's like a really hard train, but to them it's like a bouncy house train, right? So then it's like it depends. It depends.
Exactly.
And that's what's really cool because it's limited only by the imagination of the
Green Lantern.
It all depends on your creativity.
It's all the hard light projections, just like I want to create like I don't know, like a gorilla with brass knuckles, and you just boom,
boom. I got it. All right, brass knuckle gorilla. Go. But that's actually one of the more interesting things about the Green Lanterns, and specifically the reason I asked you about Guy's constructs is that Jon Stewart was actually a Marine and an architect before he was a Green Lantern. So because he's an architect, most of his constructs are just solid, like really solid. Meaning that he'll build
artillery.
He'll build up every construct he makes from the inside out, right? So if it's a steel bar, or, I don't know, concrete like construct or like a building, he'll make every single part of it in his mind because he's an architect.
Because he knows how to.
Exactly, and his constructs are so freaking precise, right? And he demonstrates that when he actually creates kryptonite down to the isotopic level using his ring.
Yes. Oh my god.
Which is insane. He just recreates kryptonite using hard light.
Dude, there was one animated series where he did the same thing just to freak out Superman. He used his hard light to create, and he's just like, "Hey, Superman!" And Superman just books it. He's like, "What the fuck?" And just fucking dips, and he's like, "Was that Batman's idea?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Like with the hard light of the kryptonite, like did it mimic like the power of kryptonite? Did it actually affected Superman, or more in the fact of like it was just more like a funny prank?
I actually think on some level it did. On some level, not maybe as like if I had actual kryptonite and was like, hey, but I think because he created it down to basically the atoms, where he was like, he imagined the atoms that actually would form kryptonite, so I guess it would be like a dulled kryptonite, you know what I mean? Like
I'd have to actually go to the book or the volume that was in, which was Justice League Volume 4, number 15, and find out for ourselves. But I think it probably did affect him. Otherwise, it would be really no point to him making it, aside from a silly prank.
I mean, Hal Jordan Jon Stewart were definitely like, I I guess for a lesser word, pranksters or whatever. They would just, like, screw with people a lot.
Yeah.
But
I'd say Hal more than John.
Absolutely.
John just seems kind of like...
John was a Marine, so he was very... I mean, a little bit more stoic than the rest.
Yeah, yeah.
Also
in that same episode, that same volume, actually, he reaches into the body of a Dominator. Dominator is what it's called, and he actually blocks oxygen from reaching their brain, which knocks them out.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's like the algae thing that Swamp Thing was you were talking about with Swamp Thing, right? Like, all right, let me just create this thing, this construct inside your body that prevents you from breathing.
That's like, I would say, like, avid Swamp Thing dude, but I think it would actually be a pretty solid fight between a Green Lantern, because you're only limited by your imagination and your willpower. You know what I mean? So, like, if you really
put your mind
dug deep and, like, really, like, you could really create something that kills somebody, or
Yeah. So an extra bit of trivia I have here, which I could have probably put in the beginning, but a little late for that. In the Silver Age of comics, there was a lot of, like, social commentary done in comic books, and when Green Lantern.
Oh God, are you going to talk about the Green Arrow, Green Lantern series? Because that's one of the best.
So when Green Lantern and Green Lantern wasn't performing that well in terms of comic book sales, they were like, all right, we have to, like, pair him up with another hero to make it more interesting, and so they pair up Hal Jordan with Green Arrow, and they just travel across the U.S. fighting crime and, like, just doing all these random adventures. And in one of them, the story was called Snowbirds Don't Fly, which was centered around the fact that Speedy, Green Arrow's sidekick, actually developed a heroin addiction, and they forced him to...
Oh my God, thank God you brought that up, because I was about to bring that up. Oh my God, dude, it was one of the best.
CJ, you're so excited. Dude.
I absolutely love that. I love the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series, because it was probably one of the best, and it was the most socially controversial, because, like Evan said, Speedy develops, like, a heroin addiction, like, a really bad, like, and Green Arrow walks in on him, like, shooting up, and it was probably one of the most brutal scenes in comic book history, because
up to that point, it actually got, like, it was
claimed out of Speedy
Times Awards, because they were like, yeah, comic books have grown up now. They've like whole themes.
And I want to add, though, there's back then there was something. Oh, it still exists, but it's called the Comic Code, and comic books had lines that they had to pretty much stick within, or else you weren't Comic Code approved. And back then, if you weren't Comic Code approved, you weren't making sales. So this was one that really stepped outside that and was like, oh my God, is that a sidekick doing heroin? Like, it was one of those things where it was like, it was totally...
It's so far removed from the world of, like, Bap and Pow and, like, really comical, just, like, fantasy.
And it was like, and I'm pretty sure the cover was Speedy, like,
just straight up shooting up,
having a freaking needle in his arm, and you just see Green Lantern and Green Arrow walking in like, that heroin?
The fuck are you doing?
And
so
it was no holds barred, because, unlike the show where Speedy was related to him, Speedy wasn't related to him in the comics. So he was basically somebody else's kid. And so controversial, but I think it was like when it came out, it was like a necessary thing, because drug use and addiction and all that stuff obviously was a taboo subject, but it was something that needed to be confronted. And DC took this step and was like, hey, heroes have problems, you know what I mean? So
not everyone's perfect.
Yeah. But it was so brutal in the way that Green Arrow screwed this kid up. Like, like beat him to almost the point of death. No, almost to the point of death, and Green Lantern had to stop him. Where he was like,
"All right, get into my."
Oh, okay, all right. Hold on, you
got your point across.
Yeah, and that was probably one of the better comic series. I'm so glad you brought that up because that was one of the better comic stories.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was more deep and more visceral, right? And close to home for us as humans, right? Because like you're thinking about all these intergalactic battles and whatever. I mean, obviously the destruction of Coast City, 7 million people dying, like that's ridiculous. Like you can't even like that number, you can't process that. And that how pretty much Anakin Skywalker's it and just goes to the dark side and becomes Parallax, right?
At least he only killed the younglings, and it was like 6 of them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Imagine 7 million younglings.
Yeah. Well, Hal didn't kill the 7 million. That was Mongol. But Hal murdered the Green Lanterns on Oa. Yeah. Actually, I just for some reason it came to my mind. I was just thinking about Kyle Rayner and Jade.
Yeah.
So Angelo, Kyle Rayner is another Green Lantern. He comes in later, where Ganthet escapes from Hal when Hal thinks he kills all of the Guardians. Ganthet is the only one who survives, and he's like, he runs into Kyle Rayner. He's like, "You'll have to do right." He's like he doesn't have really a choice to give the ring to anybody else. But it turns out that he actually was a great candidate for the ring. And because he's an artist, a lot of his hard light constructs were actual comic book characters and anime characters and a bunch of robots and fantasy stuff, and really, really interesting. I think different in comparison to John Stewart, who's an architect, right? But then this guy's an artist. So
he's so detailed in the way that he actually created. And I know one of your favorite DC characters is the Flash. He, within his mind and with the power of the ring, created
Hard Light Flash?
No. He created Green Lightning.
Oh.
A comic book character who was the descendant of Wally West and Kyle Rayner, and she was called, I apologize, the Green Lightning. And she had the ring as well as had the power of the Speed Force.
Huh.
So she was just a badass character. That was, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, that's so overpowered.
It is pretty overpowered, but not as overpowered as Superman.
Go back in time.
You are essentially untouchable, and if you want to be in fist-to-fist combat, you have a ring that you're like, okay, I imagine a gorilla who's on steroids, and bang.
With brass knuckles.
with brass knuckles.
With super speed.
Yeah, with super speed, so you could just...
CJ, what kind of hard light construct is that? Why is it always a gorilla with brass knuckles and stuff?
I have a gorilla at home with brass knuckles.
Yeah, it's funny though. So Kyle Rayner actually, when he was in university, he was dating Jade, who was actually the daughter of Alan Scott, the first Green Lantern. Which is wow, full circle, huh? And she has magical plant powers, and she's also telekinetically connected to the Green, which brings us to the Swamp Thing, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
How no. DC is intermingling all the universe.
I don't accept that.
Wait, what do you mean? CJ, Jade's mother is connected to the Green, so she also has that power.
I mean, that's dope.
You need to look into it. What?
I do need to look into it because obviously I'm super rusty and
Yeah.
Damn, I'm really upset because
why?
This thing is the only one who is connected to the Green, man.
Nope. Nope. It's not true. Look into Jade, Alan Scott's daughter.
I definitely will because I'm gonna start reading up.
Yeah.
And next time,
that's all I got, guys. I'll
be back with more.
We covered the gamut, I think. We can cover John Stewart again and Guy Gardner in more detail, or even Kyle Rayner. But what I love about Lantern is like not just the Green Lanterns, you also have the other color lanterns.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Red Lanterns, you got the White Lanterns, you got
the violet ones, the blues.
The violet, yeah.
You got the rainbow.
See, here's the thing. It's full circle with pretty much everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very, like, it covers pretty much anything, you know? Like, it's like, hey, you're depressed? Here's a blue ring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How about you get a pink ring?
I deserve a blue ring, and I'm waiting for the lantern and the call, you know?
No.
But I just want to let everybody know, I guess, if you want to read up on the Green Lightning, it was a series, Green Lantern Circle of Fire, you know, so it's actually a pretty short series. I think it's only like 6 issues, and it's with Kyle Rayner, and you know, and it goes into a little bit of the backstory as well as you know talks about like these other like, because like Evan said, like he was so like artistically inclined that you know that he was able to develop actual characters rather than like John Stewart creating architectural constructs and shit. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Evan, is there anything else you want to add on to Green Lantern?
I mean, I could go on more, but I think this is a long episode, so I'll leave it at that. And we can even just like if we do another episode on Green Lantern, probably not like character specific, more on just like the entire storyline of the Corps.
Well, I think if you do something more in Green Lantern, I would look into the other planets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
or just go
because there were some other solid alien, Green Lanterns that they really go into. Like it's pretty cool.
There's a chip
one. I feel like Green Lantern itself created its own not universe, but like creating its own niche or niche.
Yeah. Angelo, did you know that there's a squirrel Green Lantern?
I wouldn't be surprised actually.
Yeah, man.
I would decide to do like a fish Green Lantern or a hamster one.
I would love to see a hamster Green Lantern.
A fish.
Like a ball.
A fish Green Lantern is just like in a floating fish bowl.
Yeah. Or it's like Klaus from American Dad, like kind of like Green Lantern.
Yeah. Like a human actually holds the ring, but the fish controls the ring, so he's just holding the bowl. Like, all right, what do you want?
Yeah.
All right.
Like,
thanks for joining us, guys. I know. What's up?
I know you guys want to end this, but I do want to talk about the Batman getting his hands on the Green Lantern.
Let's do it.
You can't not talk about it. I mean, it was probably one of the better things in the comic universe because Batman
finally gets superpowers.
Yes.
Don't start with me, all right? Yellow Ring rejects him. I'm sorry.
Because he doesn't have superpowers, and so the Yellow Ring doesn't deserve it.
No, that's not it, Angelo.
God, how do you do a podcast with him every week?
I don't know, actually. Like, it's very touch and go.
You mean a lot of touching and a lot of talking.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And a lot of going after 2 seconds.
Hey, that's 2 seconds. That's 2 seconds.
So, all right. Just picture this. Yellow Ring rejects him. He picks up the green ring, slips it on. He asks one simple question: who is the most powerful being in the universe? The ring tells him that he is, based on his willpower, he is the most powerful being in the universe. This man says, don't tell anybody, takes the ring off, puts it down, puts down all this power. He could be on Galactus levels of just cosmic, like, he could rule the universe without blinking an eye. with a snap of a finger, blink of an eye, he could rule everything. And he has the power to be like, basically,
no,
don't tell anybody, takes the ring off, puts it down, game over. How is that not one of the best?
No, it shows very like
one of the best story arcs and
and
one of the best perspectives of like,
yeah,
like that's a hero. You know what I mean? Not even a hero. That's just a. You know what I mean?
No, I totally understand that part, but like,
well, it's a demonstration of ultimate humility.
Yeah. Or only have keep the ring, and only when it's needed.
But
no, I understand the whole not having it, and
no, but he just feels like he doesn't need it. You know what I mean? And he feels like that kind of power would consume him.
Which it actually does.
He doesn't know how to control it.
Angelo, it actually does. In an alternate universe, Batman does get a green ring, and he actually starts using it because he gets selected as a Lantern. And because of his ability to control fear, he actually ends up manifesting his own void portal or something within his anger over the death of his parents. And the Guardians try to take away his ring, and he's like, "No, fuck that!" And he just murders everyone, pretty much like Hal did, right? But this time, Batman literally murders everybody with his will, and then that universe, I think, implodes on itself from the void that generated in his heart.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so touchy with Batman because there's such a balance within Batman himself. Like, on a very basic level, he won't kill because he knows that it will tip the scales. Yeah. So on a cosmic level, if he gets that ring,
there's no way of fighting
it. Would consume the universe because either his fear or anger or whatever is going will consume everything because he is that powerful. Yeah. And that was probably one of the best stories I've ever read.
Great story.
And it was just such a humility check where you're like, if you're a huge Batman fan, you're like, oh man, put on the ring, yo dude, kick some ass, like whatever, just start screwing people up. And then he's like, no, readers, chill. Like, I can't have this because if I do this, I don't think he knows in a greater way that it's gonna destroy the universe, but he knows within himself it's gonna destroy him.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm gonna take a step back. No, I'm badass already, and Batman's already got a contingency for everybody. So he could probably eventually kick the Green Lantern's ass after 10 to 12 battles, I guess.
12? Why 12? Why so?
Said 10 to 12.
Yeah, no.
10 to 12. I mean,
Batman, I could just say 10 to 100.
No, but Batman's on a learning curve. He fights, learns more,
and you kind of learn if you watch the movie Batman vs Superman, kind of you learn
Oh god, don't get me started on that.
No, but just saying he learned after the first battle. After learning the first battle, he learns how to fight Superman.
I just want to point out a huge asshole thing. Both their parents are named Martha, so oh god, I can't do this anymore. Fucking really? That was so stupid. They could have done it so much better.
You're talking about Batman's not going to kill Superman because his mom's name is Martha?
Yeah,
I literally, honestly didn't even pay attention to that part of the movie. I had no idea that was the case.
That was probably one of the biggest scenes I've ever was focused on, and it was basically Batman over Superman.
Yeah.
And Superman's like, "Oh, Mom, Martha," and he was like, "Your mom's name's Martha," some dumb shit like that, and I was like, "All right, done. Movie's over."
Yeah, that's it. Let's get out of here. And on that note, let's end the episode. Thank you guys for joining us today. I really enjoyed talking about Green Lantern. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. And Angelo, CJ, thanks for talking about it with me. It was really cool to have you guys talk about the powers and the origin story and the different characters involved. And so since we have CJ on today, we just want to let you guys know that, CJ and I are writing a book, should be coming out soon, or by the time this episode's out, perhaps, depending on when we release this episode. But our book should be out in early March.
A week or two, whether
Yeah.
the book is released.
It'll be relatively soon that the book is going to come out. And again, we're Trading Brains. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're always going to be posting every week, generally. And if you are an artist or a writer, CJ's head of Rebel Publications and Productions. And we're partnered with them. So if you need writing work or you need somebody to do editorial staff or pretty much anything surrounding content creation, just reach out to Rebel, and they can help you grow through their platform and just get your work out into the world and as a finished product.
Absolutely. I think best part about Rebel is we really bring in everybody.
It's a safe haven.
It's a safe haven, and we really embrace every artist, writer, comic book writer, everybody. So if you got content that you don't think is or you don't think is good, or you got rejection letters, we all know about rejection letters, obviously. So
just send it in.
And we'll help you out. A to Z. We'll get you ready to either send it out to somebody else, or you can stick with us. We always got your back.
Exactly. Don't let the only thing stop you be yourself. So, and Angela and I started this podcast for that very reason. It's like, we wanted to do something interesting and different and not kind of normal, I guess, with our everyday lives. And we just started this podcast and haven't looked back since. And it's been a lot of fun. So thanks for joining us every time. And we'll see you all next week.
Like, subscribe, comment on the video, and also on our pages. And we'll see you next week.
Evan, if you don't mind, can I release, or can I say the Green Lantern Corps oath, my friend?
All right, well then, not goodbye yet, listeners. CJ's
not goodbye yet, because in brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil feel my might. Beware my power. Green Lantern light.
Hey.
No, I think that's a dope way to end it. Come on.
It is. Good way to end it. I'm just like upset that I didn't think about it before, and like I did the whole like, all right, goodbye.
Get the ring, man.
Nice. All right.
I'm gonna get you that for Christmas.
Oh, thank you. I'll like never wear it.
Well, he's married already.
Listeners, thanks for joining us. Peace out.